And I'm joined by Janet Anderson, the Aged Care Quality and Complaints Commissioner. So thank you for joining us, Janet.
My pleasure.
Janet, you've just delivered a very interesting oversight of the new standards. You mentioned the importance of the relationship between the consumer and the resident. Can you talk a little bit more to that?
Sure. My view is the regulator has an important role, but we can't be everywhere all the time. So the relationship which needs to work best and first is the relationship between the care recipient and the staff providing care. And if that can be an open, generous, warm relationship where the staff member has a genuine regard for and respect for the client and the feeling is mutual, and they are able to communicate openly with one another, then you're likely to get the best care that is meeting the consumer's needs. Where that interaction is free and easy, many problems can be solved in the moment as the care is being delivered, so that a regulator does not have to get involved or a complaint does not have to be made. And it seems to me time and again what we hear is the better providers are the ones whose staff have a genuine regard for and a close engagement with the people for whom they're providing care.
I couldn't agree more. And with the new standards coming into effect, what are some of the main changes that providers should be aware of?
The transition from the current standards to the new standards from the 1st of July is a very significant one. Some people have called it a paradigm shift, which gives you a sense of the extent of the changes that we're imagining here. Fundamental to the new standards is a focus on the consumer, the care recipient, the person receiving care. We're putting them at the very centre of the picture, and the provision of services, decisions about what services are provided, the way in which care is delivered, should have at the forefront what is going to work best for the consumer. And so my audit teams, when they go into, say, a nursing home, will be asking the consumers of care, their family members and staff, is the care being provided that which is working best for the consumer? And that's our auditing gaze now, which hasn't historically been as strong as that.
Yeah, so with such a significant emphasis on the consumer, what would you recommend aged care operators do to prepare for the new standards?
A number of things. First of all, they should read the standards. They should familiarise themselves with what's different, what's new, particularly the outcome statement for consumers, so that they put themselves into the consumer's shoes. What does this care look like from the care recipient's perspective? And that gives them a refreshed understanding of what needs to change. I also want them to undertake self-assessment. And we have guidance on the website, on the Commission's website, to assist them in reflecting on their own practice, the way they are organising services now. Obviously, I want them to refresh and possibly revise their plan for continuous improvement. And fundamentally, there should be conversations with staff about the way the new standards are different from the old standards, and with consumers and their family members, so that no one is in any doubt that these new standards are coming into play, that there are a different set of expectations that the providers are comfortable to fulfil, and that the consumers can assist them fulfilling and working alongside them.
With the National Indicators program coming into effect as a mandatory come July 1,
yes.
Do you feel this is placing more pressure on the operators to perform?
The Quality Indicators program has been an optional program up to this point, and we've seen a number of providers who've taken it up as a choice they've made. What it does is effectively ask providers to gather data about pressure injuries, about physical restraint, unexplained or unplanned weight loss. That's gone well enough, but what the Minister has done recently is announced that the collection and reporting of that data is now mandated from the beginning of July. That does up the ante. Make no mistake, that places an expectation on providers that they had volunteered to fulfil up to this point. By the same token, providers have been very clear that the game is changing, that more is expected of them as the new standards come into place. This is simply another in the line of new steps along the reform journey, which is ensuring that providers are paying very close attention to managing the risks involved in delivering care to a frail, vulnerable, elderly group of people.
And from your feedback, how effective or meaningful are these indicators for consumers?
I don't know that consumers know a lot about them yet. Because it's been a voluntary program, it probably hasn't had a lot of airtime. I think it will become more material over time. Certainly from the Commissioner's perspective, as we look at this data and we take it into the assessments we're making of providers, it will become more material to our own interests and the work that we undertake. As they become published and more widely shared, I expect that there will be conversations around their meaning, and what individual providers may be doing depending on where they perform against their peers.
With your consumer experience reports, how much is taken in for people with cognitive impairment consideration?
That's a really interesting question, and in fact one of the questions I first asked when I was briefed on our consumer experience reports. The methodology underpinning the interview process was developed by La Trobe University. So we went to find experts in sampling and interview approaches and so on, because we wanted it to be a significant piece of work. We didn't want it to be marginal. And what La Trobe University did was develop a set of questions, and they're not many in number, but they are questions that can be answered by a person who is cognitively impaired. And this interested me, but the science is there, and the answers to the questions that we ask in the consumer experience reports are equally valid for a person with cognitive impairment as they are for somebody who's cognitively intact. And this is great because it means we don't have to overlook anyone in a care setting, and all consumers have the opportunity to express their views, to have voice. And to ensure that their perspective of care, their personal experiences are material to the assessments we make about that care provider.
I think that's great, because I think historically that perhaps has been overlooked, because operators from time to time have said it might skew their data. So
yes,
I think that's great to hear that research has been done.
And with the number of people in nursing homes increasingly who have some degree of dementia, this is clearly something that we had to address. We could not turn away from it.
Great. Look, thank you so much for your time, and I wish you well for the rollout of come July 1.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.